Absolutely not. No, we tried that for years. We did that for years.
Obviously, like the second I hit the 12 and got him loose before he was done spinning, I was like, oops.
Like we're going to be a lot better than we were last year, and hopefully we improve and go the track to win every weekend.
Welcome on to the Backstretch. I am News 5's Heather Williams, and what a race Atlanta was. I mean, we'll talk about the ending here in a little bit, but just the racing itself, Atlanta has become an amazing track now. Truth be told, it's one of my favorite tracks. It's one of the first races that I covered as a journalist 20 plus years ago in the sport. I always loved the speed of Atlanta because I grew up as kind of an IndyCar fan, and the raw speed was always very attractive to me. But the raciness, just the raciness and the fun of Atlanta this week, it was great. We were this close to back-to-back 3 wide finishes at this race in the spring. And really, we got a 3 wide finish. It just wasn't where we thought it was going to be at the start-finish line. I know that people are upset about the finish. We're going to talk about this quite a bit with Chris when he comes on. I know people want green flag finishes. I know, I get it. But racing back to the caution when people are wrecking, especially at the front of the field, is just too dangerous. And as fast as the speeds are at Atlanta, and as fast as you would come back around, and all the guys trying to make it back in 15th, 16th place, trying to dodge a 7th or 8th place car, whatever Barry was when he was wrecked, it's too dangerous. We can't do it. So I really do get your disappointment. I understand why you wanted to see a green flag finish, but in this case, it just wasn't possible. But I don't think it takes away anything from the race. I thought Atlanta was a great race. We're also going to talk quite a bit about Carson Hocevar. I'm actually going to talk a little bit about him and aggressive driving in my final thought. But not a lot of people were happy with how Carson. So I went down to the NASCAR bi-weekly media availability in Concord. Carson was there, kind of got his side of the story. We'll play some of that from you. Chris will talk about it. And like I said, I'm going to talk about it in my final thought as well. Also want to give a little shout out to my final thought from last week, which was Legacy Motor Club. They are, specifically John Hunter Nemechek, they are having a pretty good start to the season. I know you're saying it's back-to-back super speedways, anything can happen. Sure. But as miserable as they were last year, and John Hunter was probably the miserablest of the miserable, for him to have back-to-back top 10s to start the season and to be able to be in this position where he hasn't hurt himself out of the gate, and for that organization to look as strong as it has on the super speedways, at least, it's a good sign for them. It's a good sign for Toyota because, you know, one of the biggest things with Toyota has always been, sure, Joe Gibbs Racing is good, and yeah, 2311 is pretty good too, but there's no support other than those top 6 teams. Well, now you've got 2 more, 2.5, if you want to talk about the interweavings in and out of Jimmy Johnson onto the scene after he finished 3rd in the Daytona 500. So good thing, good vibes from Legacy Motor Club, and hopefully they can keep that up the rest of the season. All right, so as I mentioned, Chris is back this week. I'm going to give him one final chance to kind of put a period on what happened with them at Daytona. We're also going to talk about Hocevar. We're going to talk about Atlanta in general, and we'll preview this week's race at COTA because I think this is going to be really fascinating too, right? COTA's reconfigured. Don't really know what to expect. Most of the drivers I've talked with don't really know what to expect. So that'll be interesting, to say the least, this weekend at COTA. We're going to hear, as I mentioned, a little bit from Carson Hocevar about what went on last week at Atlanta. And then my guest this week is Ty Gibbs. I'm not going to play all of my interview from Ty Gibbs. A lot of it is dated. I interviewed him 3 weeks ago before the Daytona 500. So I'll probably play some of the dated sound just because, but just know that this was an interview I recorded with him a couple of weeks ago. But I think this is a really big year for Ty. I think he's got to, you know, kind of show that he's up there with the other three cars and teams at Gibbs. And he wasn't that far off last year. He didn't win a race. He's approaching that 100 race mark, which is the mark where people talk about that's when you really know who a driver is. He's getting close to that, and I think he needs a win before he gets to that. I think he's got half of the season this year to get there. but it's really big for him. And it's also really big just for Joe Gibbs in general, right? Because that organization, they were red hot to start last season, and then they fell off a cliff in the second half. So I think not only Ty needs to come out and win, but really Chase Briscoe needs to find some way to recover from his 100-point penalty, get a win, and get in the playoffs. Obviously, Denny Hamlin needs to find first half of last season Denny Hamlin form. And then Christopher Bell, who won last week in Atlanta, he's obviously the strongest of those teams at this point. He just needs to continue to grow and really maybe take the next step, not just getting to the championship 4, but being competitive once he gets there. He's been to the championship 4 now twice, but he hasn't really done much in Phoenix when he's got there. So, this is a big win for all of them. So we'll talk about expectations with Ty Gibbs as well. All right, let's get going. Joining us now is our crew chief, Chris Geary, who's also the crew chief of the number 75 Food Country Truck in the Craftsman Truck Series. Chris, I know that last week you talked about the disqualification, but you released a statement on X this week. Any final thoughts about what happened in Daytona for you guys?
Well, Heather, really, to be honest with you, our team, myself and my team, we're kind of over it right now. We're back to like, hey, we got to get going, business as usual. We got to get ready for the next races coming up, which for us will be Bristol. And we want to be, 100% for that. And then the next weekend, we're planning on running Rockingham, which is the weekend after that. So 2 races on successive weekends is difficult for us. The preparation is a little harder, a little more to each day, getting ready. I hate thinking about 2 races at one time, but I have to, because there's not much time in between. So we've talked about it. We know what's what, and we know what the ins and outs are, and we're not going to hold anger or vindication in our hearts forever and just eat you up. So we're okay. Our driver's okay. He's ready to go. When we go back, our plan is to kick and take names.
All right, well, I know you will. Always run well at Bristol. All right, so moving on to Atlanta, there's been a lot of talk this week about the officiating and racing back to the checkered flag. What are your thoughts on how the end of the Xfinity Series race and then the end of the Cup Series race was handled?
I would say there's room for, I guess, if you want to say controversy, or better yet, a better word would be just a little bit of wondering, of like what could have been done better, this, that, and other. At the end of the day, the thing is, we all have to keep in our minds as the priority is like, we don't want people crashing because the caution hasn't been put out when it should have been. So that's,
well, we can't race back to the checkered flag, right? That's dangerous.
Absolutely not. No, we tried that for years. We did that for years. And that, we got away with it a lot of times, that people race back to the flag and barely miss somebody that was sitting dead still on the racetrack or sitting crossways, and the safety crews had to wait on some cars, to go by a little bit and delay them a little bit. So finally, it's like we decided, I can't remember, Heather, it's been a pretty good while back, several years ago.
Early 2000s, I think, or late 90s.
At least,
yeah.
When they finally said, we can't, we're not doing this anymore. When the caution comes out, the field's frozen, there's no more racing, you slow down. They tell you, I believe the way it's termed is you roll out of the throttle and pay attention to what's around you. Don't cut any, they just keep going with like directions of do the smart thing, use some common sense, don't make the situation worse.
Yeah.
Don't do all you can to not make the situation worse. And I've heard them say in driver meetings, said, remember, the next time, the caution comes out, that may be you sitting there, sideways in the racetrack or dead stopped or whatever and needing help. And so you're depending on your fellow racers to slow down, not make the accident any worse, and give the safety people time and the confidence to know that they're not going to pull out in front of a car going 150 miles an hour and get T-boned. So it's all about, do what you would want other people to do for you and make it all better for all of us.
And I think, to be fair, all the drivers are in favor of not racing back.
I think
it was the fans that were, and I get it, they want to see a green checkered flag finish.
Sure.
But it's not safe. It's not the right thing to do.
No, I would never, I will question NASCAR about a lot of stuff. We already know that. But I will never question when I don't think it's right to question a call that's like, put the caution out. There's enough happening out there. We need to get safety people out there as quickly as possible, and we don't need this to get any worse. There's still a possibility of cars getting caught up in it and making it even worse. So, you know, it's not worth the risk. It is not. I don't care. It's not worth the risk.
All right. So the other big talker this week was about Carson Hocevar and his aggressive driving. I'm going to play a soundbite from him so that we can kind of hear what he has to say, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
I don't think there's anything I learned from the conversations. It's more reassuring what I probably already knew. You know, obviously, like the second I hit the 12 and got him loose before he even was done spinning, I was like, oops, like didn't mean, like I meant to run up on him, just didn't mean to have that extra inch to hit him and get him offset and just get a bad angle and too far into the corner. And like I already knew that, right? Like I didn't have to have that conversation. That's why it was really quick of just, you know, him just reassuring to have his probably own peace of mind that he did say something and that it did get through. The other stuff, it won't go through until I'm given that opportunity again to see if I do something different naturally. You know, that's how you could tell, because a lot of times I'm driving off instinct anyways. So it's the works now to the next time I'm given that opportunity to make different decisions or different moves that hopefully impacts us well, but also too, if it can, you know, balance it all out, that's will be how I, you know, take from those conversations.
So, Chris, there was a line of drivers waiting to talk to Hocevar after the race, but is it fair to call him out about aggressive driving? Aren't these guys paid to win?
Heather, yes. The answer to your question is yes. They're out there, their owners, their sponsors, the people that are paying their living are paying them to try to beat everybody else, every race. That's why we have one winner and a second place and a third place and a 30th place and a 40th place. That's what it's all about. So what he said there isn't incorrect. You can't attack him for that. And no, he's not out there to make friends. Probably the most popular driver in our time, or most of our viewers' time can remember, was a guy that drove that black number 3. And I promise you, he wasn't out there to make any friends, not on the racetrack. He made a lot of friends off the racetrack, and kudos to him for that. But the only thing my opinion on Carson Hocevar is this. First of all, he has a lot of talent, a lot of raw talent, which I compare him in that aspect to two guys that come to mind, Ernie Irvan and Tim Richmond. Okay, Ernie Irvan had the same kind of attitude as Carson Hocevar does right now. He's the same thing, and a lot of drivers didn't like Ernie Irvan. They felt like he caused some crashes, that a lot of cars got tore up, that some drivers got hurt in, so on and so forth. But it was kind of like he was numb to that. You know, he went on. He didn't want anybody to get hurt. He didn't want to crash anybody intentionally. But his main purpose was, I want to win. I'm here to win races. That's what I get paid for, just like Carson Hocevar. What he's got to do, the challenge for him, for Carson Hocevar, he's got to channel that energy he's got and that ability and that raw talent and that desire to be he's got to pass that next guy. Him inside, that little monster inside of him is telling him, pass that car. I don't care who it is, pass him. For whatever you got to reason, you know, for whatever you got to do, pass him. Get around that guy in front of you. And he listens to that, and that's what drives him. He's just got to learn to channel that a little bit.
But isn't that youth? I mean, you brought up Ernie Irvan, but you got Ross Chastain, Kyle Busch, Joey Logano. All of those guys came out, and people were like, oh, you're way too aggressive. Now those same guys are mad at Carson, when really, isn't it just maturity?
I think it is. I think all the ones that you just named, you know, Ross Chastain is basically Ross Chastain is basically Carson's unofficial tutor. He's his mentor. He's the guy he looks to. And that comes through the relationship through Nice Motorsports that both of them drove for in the Truck Series. Okay, they're good friends, so on and so forth. They respect each other. They've done a lot for each other. I think Ross now has gotten through his wild child stage a little bit. And you can argue the fact that when he did, he kind of calmed down a little bit. And
he's not running as well.
His success rate is not as good.
He's not running as well.
So, you know, again, I think this what we're talking about is a razor sharp line that Carson Hocevar finds himself on. Not many people, not many drivers have the raw talent that this kid's got. And I'm not talking about only today, I'm talking about ever. This kid's got a ton of raw talent and energy and desire to make that talent work and produce wins. And he's wanting to win for his team. He's wanting to win for his owner, his sponsors, his family, the whole 9 yards. He just can't wait to get there. Everybody, the other drivers are looking like, dude, you've got 25 years of this stuff to get wins. Don't run over the top of me doing it. You know, please, I don't want to go to the hospital to see you win races. So it's a challenge. It's going to be a challenge for his team owner, the team officials, his crew chief, all the people that are on his side and trying to win with him. You know, the problem is if he makes too many enemies in this, that's going to work against him.
Yeah, that's the big thing.
That's a big thing because on Sundays and in the races and stuff, it'll be a time to where, man, I ain't letting you in.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to push you down the straightaway by these other three. I'll just let you do the work on your own, and then I'll go by you. He's got to find that. He's got to find his way through that, and it's going to be interesting to watch. He's going to learn some lessons along the way. He's probably, to be honest with you, I'll just speak the truth. There's probably going to be times when his car gets torn up because of it, because somebody like, okay, you hit me, I'm going to knock the you-know-what out of you, and there you go. You're on the wrecker, and I'll finish the race. But, you know, again, you got to remember, this boy's got a lot of talent. And car owners and sponsors and crew chiefs and team management people are looking back and saying, man, if he's going to mature. The maturity's going to come in time. It's going to come in time. It's going to come slowly, but it'll come. And when he gets it, when he finds that razor edge, and he knows how to stay on it, and he knows, you know, when to better hold back here just a little bit, and then when to push that gas as hard as he can go. When he gets that timing down, whew, this kid's probably going to get a lot of checkered flags. He's in, I mean, he could get a lot of success. And a lot of people are looking there saying, boy, I'd like to have him driving my car.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to have him my car as a crew chief, because whatever I do, he's going to win the race. He's going to make me look like a hero. So, you know, Heather, yeah, I'm on the one side of it, like, man, I'd hate to be fixing all those cars he's tearing up. But the other side of it is, you know, driver can make more difference than anything. I mean, it's just part of it. It's to me, it's like a quarterback on a football team. Everybody doesn't have a Patrick Mahomes.
No, they don't.
No, they don't. and, you know, at the time, everybody didn't have a Tom Brady.
Right.
And it just makes a huge difference. And everybody knows in this sport, everybody knows it. It's like, okay, I can find the right guy to go in my car at the right time. He's going to win some races for me. And, you know, that's what I'm there to do. So I'd like to have him, you know. So we'll see how this plays out. He's, you know, it's going to be, you're going to see more of this. This isn't over.
Yeah,
this isn't over. He's not just going to cuddle up and say, okay, I'll slow down.
No.
He's not going to say, I'll slow down. No, he's going to
race.
stand up and say, I'm going to drive as hard as I can. And somewhere along the line, he's going to say, I'm just not going to wreck as much, and I'm not going to run over everybody as much, but I'm still going to find a way to win. Now, when he figures out that combination, and he will, woo,
watch out.
Watch out.
All right, so this week NASCAR has two Circuit of the Americas.
Yep.
We're running what's called the short course.
Yep.
Which is about a mile shorter than what they've been running. So what can we expect from the racing this week?
Well, I think, we were talking about this just the other day. One thing that'll happen, I believe, I think it'll be a lot better for the fans, for the spectators that's at, because one thing about a course that long, it took so long that you saw all the, I remember sitting in the pits watching our truck race, you saw all the trucks go by, the race cars go by, boom, 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 watching, and then you sit there and it's like, you could eat a sandwich and a bag of potato chips before they came around. And I think there's too much time for the fans at the racetrack now. So we see it on TV, we see the whole thing, but I think it'll be more entertaining for them. I think it will be also better because the caution flags will not eat up the racetrack. When there's a caution,
right.
You don't have to wait good night. It takes an hour for them to come all the way around on a caution lap. Well, it's not going to be that. And I think it'll be easier for the drivers to communicate with their crew chiefs and their race engineers, because they don't have to tell them about 22 turns. Now they take off what you said, a mile of the racetrack. So that's a mile of the racetrack that the drivers don't have to explain, okay, what's going on down here, what's going on down there. Now you got to talk about the other 18 turns and everybody gets confused. So I think overall, I think it'll be a better show. I think it'll be better entertainment. I think the racing will be just as good. I don't know that it'll produce any different results, whether we're on the long track or the short track, but I think it'll be a better race, more entertainment. I think everybody will have thumbs up after it's all over.
Your season, obviously, you guys started strong last year and then kind of hit the lull in the middle of the season. Not just you, but really Joe Gibbs Racing as a whole. You got a new crew chief this year. Are you excited for the changes and the opportunity to kind of get back to where you guys were at the beginning of the season?
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited. I'm excited to work with my new crew chief, Tyler Allen, and my new engineers, Grayson. So I'm excited for this year. I think it's going to be a fun year, and I'm excited for the whole organization. I feel like we're going to be a lot better than we were last year, and hopefully we improve and go to the track to win every weekend.
So what's a successful season for you this year? Obviously, you won Rookie of the Year. Your rookie year had a great season. Last year, you had a good season, but you didn't win. You didn't make the playoffs. So kind of what's the goal for your team this year?
For us, I mean, I think it's just to go try to win every single weekend, and if not, try to finish the best we possibly can with what we have brought to the track. So I think that's kind of been the memo, but now it's going to stay the same for the rest of this year.
Looking kind of a little bit ahead, I know there's still 2 weeks, but I'm sure preps are already underway for Daytona. What about that track and kind of getting the season kicked off there? Do you not like? Like, what are your emotions going down to Daytona?
I'm definitely excited for going down to Daytona, and of course, there's some things I can't control, like the crashes that other people can cause or myself can cause, and other people get caught up in it. But that's part of the racing style, and but I'm really excited for it. I'm excited to get the season going and get racing.
You talked about not being able to control the crashes. Do you just kind of have to not even think about that at that kind of style of racing? Because a crash is going to happen, and it seems like you don't really know when or who might cause it.
Yeah, I mean you can, but you still have to know it's going to happen and try to avoid it, because that's your only shot of going to be able to win the race at the end. So it's definitely it's definitely a con for sure on the list.
Final question. Obviously, you are a Commanders fan. Great season. Now that you guys are done, will you watch a Super Bowl? Will you root for someone? Or are you just going to kind of just focus on racing now?
Yeah, I don't know. Of course, it's definitely a bummer, but it's super cool that I got to watch the Commanders, go all the way to the NFC Championship and have a good shot. But it's definitely been a cool year. I don't know who I'll be rooting for in the Super Bowl. I guess I'll probably. I really don't know. I don't know. I just wish the Commanders are in there, and wish that we could have gone for it, but whatever.
For my final thought tonight, I want to talk a little bit about Carson Hocevar and his situation, and specifically, more so than Carson, just the idea of drivers today are so aggressive. They have no manners. You heard me talk about this with Chris a little bit. You heard me kind of needling him in this direction, because I just think it's really interesting, right? I've been covering the sport for 23 years. And every time a new crop, a new generation comes in, you kind of hear this, oh, this generation has no respect. They do this, they do that. It's called youth. It's called you don't know what you don't know. And Carson talked about this in depth. I have a story on our website, wcyb.com, where I use some of the quotes from him on this. He's young. This is his second year in the Cup Series. He didn't spend a ton of time in the Truck Series. He skipped right over Xfinity. He does moves and doesn't realize that that's not, quote, the way we race. And I think that's fine, right? It is working for Carson. They finished second at Atlanta last week. He's got that team, that Spire team, headed in the right direction. This is an organization that's trying to make a mark for itself. They're trying to be the next Trackhouse, the next 2311, the next new team to come on the scene and really establish themselves. So what Carson is doing is working. But I do understand the idea. I do think it's kind of funny that he learns this from Ross Chastain, who is his mentor, because Ross has certainly gone through this, that while it's great and it's working, you don't want to make too many enemies, because then they're not going to help you when you need help. So it's a fine line. Chris talked about it. But let's not act like this has never been a problem until this generation of racers, or that the generation of racers, the Kyle Bushes, the Denny Hamlins, the Joey Logano's, the Kyle Larsons, that are now kind of annoyed by this behavior, didn't do it themselves when they were younger, didn't do this themselves 6 years ago. Carson will get there. He's very talented. Chris is very high on him. You could tell from our interview. And I like him a lot. He's kind of team chaos for me, in the same way that I liked Ross. I am always team chaos. I want a black hat. I want to win there. It's the same reason why I'm a huge Denny Hamlin fan. Not in the sense of like, oh, I pull for him to win races, but just what he does for the sport, and being that black hat, being that heel. Carson has fit into that role well. And as a young driver, he's comfortable enough with himself to understand that he's not going to have friends. He debuted a great shirt on Friday on X, is where I saw it. It's probably a lot of other places, where he says, "You want to join my boy band?" Because he made the comment last week in Atlanta, "We're not making a boy band here. We're not here to make friends." And that's the kind of chaos I think this sport needs. They can't all be Chase Elliott. Yes, Chase Elliott is the favorite. Yes, everybody loves Chase and William Byron and their choir boys, and it's great. But 40 of those, 43 of those would make for a really boring sport. So I say kudos to Carson Hocevar for what he's doing. Aggressive driving is kind of part of the sport. Now, if it gets to the level of dangerous, I can understand why drivers would be upset. But as far as I'm concerned, you go for it, Carson. Thanks for joining us on The Backstretch. We'll see you next week.